we doing? All right, I especially want to say good morning to everybody online. I hope you guys are having a good time on your couch. Maybe you got your coffee going, maybe some tea, maybe some breakfast. I don't know, whatever you do. So everybody needs some breakfast sometimes to enjoy church. Am I right? Right? Okay, cool. So I'm Quinn. For those of you that might not know me, I'm the creative pastor here at Shoreline, and I get to facilitate, oversee the artistic culture of our church, and it really is a pleasure. I don't know if, for those of you that came back this week, if you notice things are a little bit different in the building. If you don't know, you ought to check up what's going on here in our balcony. It's amazing. I got to give a huge shout out to Brooke. I love you, sister. You're awesome. Yes, please. This past week, we had a creative team night, and we brought everybody in our creative team together to get inspired, to get refilled. And it's really cool to be a part of a church that values art, that wants to see and make art that speaks to the community and draws them into the irresistible environment that Jesus creates within us and around us, right? Yes. So about a year or two ago, my wife, we were living in Tennessee, and my wife was having some allergy issues, and she was trying to figure out why are things just not working right. Okay, and so she was talking to some friends, and they're like, well, try this and try that. And eventually one of them said, well, why don't you go to the chiropractor? And so she went to this chiropractor, and she came back, and it was like a life change. She was like, Quinn, you've got to go see this guy. And I was like, if you've never been to the chiropractor, you were probably a lot like me. We were just like, someone's hands on me? So we'll start there. And then second of all, you're gonna hurt me to heal me? I don't know about that. But see, here's the deal. At this point, I'm an expert massage receiver, okay? I like the massage, okay? And you know how you can tell like a newbie from like an expert? Because newbies still wear undergarments. Experts get naked, okay? So I like being naked and letting the massage therapist do his or her work. It makes me feel better. So I wasn't sure that this experience was going to help me out too much, but I was like open to the idea. I mean, I'm a massage expert. Why not, right? So I go to the chiropractor, and he's this really sweet guy. And it's just like, you're really sweet. Okay, so you don't want to kill me, okay? But then he pulls out this tool. Check this tool out. You guys ever see anything like this? I was like, okay, so first I was like, okay, he's gonna put his hands on me, he's gonna, like pop me one, and it's gonna be like, ugh. And then he's like, pulls out this thing, he's like, what, do you wanna like shoot me with this thing? What is this? So I like get on, he's like, okay, just get on the mat. And I'm like, okay, so I get down and I'm like bracing myself. It's almost like for those of us that experienced corporal punishment back in the day, especially if you went to the principal's office in parts of the country where that happens, it's like you hold onto the desk and you're just like waiting. And so I'm like waiting. I'm like, oh God. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, like he shoots me and I'm like about to flip off the mat. And I'm like, oh. And then I was like, wait. I feel better. Maybe you're like me, and you've been through this whole COVID experience, and things aren't aligning right. Things aren't working right. And you might need a spiritual chiropractor to come in and pop you one, okay? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. The title of my message is called Be Aligned. This word alignment is kind of like the word adjustment. When you go to the chiropractor, they're adjusting you. They're like, Dr. Andrew told me there's things in my hands, so he started popping my knuckles, and like my F something back here was like not working right. So he's like, pop me. And so he made an adjustment in my body, and I was like, all of a sudden I was like moving differently. And I was like, strutting my stuff, and I was like, yeah, life is good. But if we don't maintain that, we have to go back. For those of you that go to the chiropractor, you know that you constantly have to go back. You constantly have to get adjusted. So we're going to change out that word adjusted to the word aligned. The word alignment, according to Google, means this. It's a position of agreement or alliance. Sometimes parts of our hearts don't seem to agree. That means that they're not aligned. Sometimes parts of our relationships don't seem to agree. That means they're not aligned. Sometimes parts of our lives don't seem to agree with the world around us. That means that they're not aligned. A lot of us have been through a whole lot recently, and inside we kind of feel out of whack. So I'd posit that there's a deep need in us to be realigned, to remember what it feels like to be our best selves, right? So luckily, God is the great spiritual chiropractor, and he sets us right. A lot of you are here because either you know that's true, you're curious, you want to know if it's true, and so those of you that are watching online for the first time, my hope for you that you would know that it is the truth. God has a really great design for us. And so when Jesus showed up on the side of a hill to deliver what we call the Sermon on the Mount, like Graham started to share last week, the people he was talking to probably felt like a lot of us do today, right? They felt like underdogs. They felt beaten up, and they were tired of losing. Anybody feel like you lost a lot this year? Kind of over it? The world wasn't adding up for them. Their world and their insides were not aligned. Jesus was considered a prophet before he shared this message. So when the Jews showed up on the scene to hear him talk, they had already known that he was performing miracles. And this served as kind of a sign to them, right? Prophets in their culture were kind of spiritual chiropractors. So they expected him to say something that would help them see how their lives could be better. And they were hoping that what they were going to hear was something from heaven, that God would deliver to them, because they were used to hearing these things from God, okay? The Jews were this little bitty tribe in the middle of nowhere. And to the world outside, they were strange people with strange gods that did strange things in life, okay? But they were convinced that the God of the universe had promised them that they were going to take care of the earth, that they were going to be at the top of the mountain, the top of the hill, top of the food chain. They were the last now, but they were eventually going to be first. But it's kind of like, you know, that kid brother who's like really scrawny that keeps trying to mess with you, and you just keep like, you know, just palming him, just like moving him out of the way, but he just keeps on, you know, swinging, and you're like, he's never going to win. Or if you're into sports, it's like the Browns, okay? Wow. Now listen, I can speak with authority because my family is from Cleveland, and we still believe that one day we will take the ball across the line and win the Super Bowl. It will happen. It's gonna happen. We know everybody is laughing at us now, but one day. And you know what? When it happens, it'll probably feel a lot like the Saints winning the Super Bowl. It was a celebration for the ages. Everybody was into that, or the Cubs for that matter in recent history. It was a win. And so the Jews were holding on to this promise. And it wouldn't only just be a win for them, it would be a win for everybody. But at this point, they were pretty insulated and pretty mad about this position that they were in, because they were getting pushed around by Big Brother Roman Empire, and they were over it. So here's Jesus. He steps out on the mountain. And let's look at this promise that God had made to the Jews, okay? I think it's really important. This is in Deuteronomy 28. This is what it says. This is God. If you fully obey the Lord your God and carefully follow all his commands I give you today, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations on earth. All these blessings will come on you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God. You will be blessed in the city and blessed in the country. The fruit of your womb will be blessed, and the crops of your land and young of your livestock, the calves of your herds and the lambs of your flocks. Your basket and your kneading trough will be blessed. You will be blessed when you come in and blessed when you go out. So Moses, another prophet, an important prophet in their community, centuries early, delivered this original promise. Two things. What word do you see happening a lot? Blessed. Thank you. All right, I got you. So the word blessed. So for us, we'd be like, okay, what does being blessed mean? Well, just reading through this list, it sounds like a contract in this case. God's like, if you will, I will. If you'll do this, I'll do this. And notice it's a lot of like material things, right? You'll inherit all this stuff. You'll get that place on the mountain. You'll have a lot of kids. You'll have money. You'll have influence. This for this. God's ultimate promise is a blessed life. And this is what they believed to the death. And they made a lot of mistakes along the way with God, but he just kept on honoring his part of the bargain. They had sealed it in blood, as they say. He kept on being merciful and compassionate. And they were still hoping for the fulfillment of this promise. A lot of us stepped into 2020 and thought, this is going to be the best year ever. We made a joke earlier this year that this was the year of clarity. 2020. Well, guess what? It's real clear what people feel and think now, isn't it? And it doesn't feel that good. We're kind of at the bottom of the hill, hoping that Jesus is going to share something with us that's going to change our futures. We feel like that little kid brother who keeps on swinging and getting pushed to the side. We're hurting. And we need a good word. We need something that's going to look better than what we're seeing right now. So like I said, Jesus comes on the scene. He's known as a miracle worker. They think he's a good teacher. He's a prophet. So he's going to come and be the spiritual chiropractor. They're waiting for the secrets. Now look at what Jesus says. And this is going to be a little bit of recap for those of you that are watching online. If you haven't checked out Graham's message last week, I encourage you to watch it. It was amazing. He started to talk about what I'm about to share with you right now. And I'm gonna even focus in a little bit more. So there's a big Sermon on the Mount where Jesus talks about some principles to live by, and then he tells a lot of stories about how to live it out. So those very core principles are what we call the Beatitudes. That's why we're doing Be Excellent, because we want to focus on the be attitudes, right? Pastor Eric even said it this morning. It's not about striving to be excellent. It is just being excellent, right? We're human beings, not human doings. So Jesus starts talking. He says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Something look familiar? Blessed. The word blessed. Notice, Moses had this promise from God that he delivered. Now Jesus is taking that pattern and he's tweaking it just a little bit. I think what Jesus is trying to do is suggest that we're in a new time. This is a new thing. This is the old contract. There's a new thing. And it's better than a contract. Jesus was following this pattern that his people knew, but he was sharing it in a new way. It has a new angle. Notice it has less to do with if you will, I will, and more to do with be you because of who I am. These statements are affirmations. When Moses came, he delivered this to the Jews. It was a promise for them, just as a people group. What Jesus is delivering is broad. It's not just for the Jews. It's for everyone. And it's just as much a promise for us today as it was when he delivered it in the first place. If you embrace this, your circumstances may not change, but your heart definitely will. That's what Jesus is offering here. Instead of gaining the world, which was the first agreement, that stuff is perishable. You'll gain heaven, which is imperishable. Jesus is not speaking to what you own. He's speaking to what's in your heart. And what's in your heart, when you gain heaven, it changes what's around you. So put another way, just like the people hearing Jesus' words then, we are all used to earning anything we have or having to pay for what we want. We often attribute that way of living to interacting with God in order to get what we want from him. Some of you have this, we make these deals with God, right? God, if you'll only do this, then I'll do that. God's not into that. God's into, hey, hang out with me. Let me, by being around me, by being with me, I will change you. So our circumstances may not change immediately, but our hearts definitely will. So what Jesus is essentially suggesting here is that was a useful step back then for a people who were learning to be free. The Jews were former slaves, and God set them free. And he kind of did it like a Navy SEAL. Do what God says and survive. We got to start there. But as time progresses, we have to learn new habits and new boundaries. But along with God is really just after a relationship. And so in order to start off making a relationship with us, God gets in the dirt. That's why we have Jesus. He came here to show us what it looks like to be in a relationship with our Heavenly Father. Jesus invites us all to take off the weight of I have to, so that we can receive the freedom of I get to. There's a time in our lives where we need someone just to tell us what to do. Hey, don't do this thing. It will kill you. And sometimes we as a parent, there's a lot of stuff I tell my kids not to do, and they still do it. And the reason I tell them not to do it is because I know it's going to hurt them. I know it's going to get them. So eventually they've got to learn those boundaries. They've got to be disciplined enough not to do that thing. But my hope is that somewhere down the line, and maybe if you're an older parent, you understand that your relationship shifts from the parent that has to give them the discipline and the rules and the boundaries to a parent that gets to have a friendship with your kids. And then you start talking about the deep things of life. And because you establish those boundaries in the beginning, they now respect you enough to actually hear what you have to say. They may not always agree with what you have to say, but they're at least open to the exchange. Well, with God, what the exchange eventually renders is a blessed life. That's God's ultimate hope for us. And so with the Jews, he started off with, these are the boundaries. I need you to do this, do that, so we can get you past this, and then we can do more. So what Jesus is saying, if we look really closely, these core values, these beatitudes, they're actually paradoxes. This is like a school word. If you were in class and you were with your English teacher or somebody, like, paradox. Well, a paradox is this. Okay, that's what I'm doing today. So a paradox is a pair of opposites that have an inverse connection. So if you put these things, if you took them apart, they don't seem to work together, but then you put them together and you're like, something about that doesn't make sense. But the more we think about it, the more we see that they do. So using another beatitude as an example, and I'm going to add a twist of translation. And another thing, this is another important thing. This word blessed, okay? We have lots of different ideas about what the word blessed means. A lot of the time we attribute blessed to how much stuff we have. But the original language, what it's actually saying is you'll be supremely happy. So blessed is supremely happy in this case. So using another beatitude as an example with this new twist of translation, listen to this. You'll be supremely happy when you are meek, which means humble, putting other needs above your own, taking it on the chin for the good of others, even when you're right. Because in doing so, you'll inherit the earth. Right? Now, for a lot of us, when we think about the word meek, we associate the word meek with weak. Am I right? I mean, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, man. Don't let anyone push you around. It's cause and effect society. So fight to be king of the hill. But what Jesus is saying here is when you're the powerful one and you know that you are, you can harness that power into treating others with kindness, even when they don't deserve it. In God's economy, the real power is in choosing to release something to someone who doesn't deserve it, or being connected to God's love enough inwardly to hold back from hurting someone even though you want to. I know that a lot of us wanted to hurt some people this year. Because if you followed that action, it would make things more destructive to community and to your heart otherwise. By choosing to take your power and reserve it, you're actually protecting your heart. You're actually doing what God wants you to do. So now, throw in the fact, like I said before, that these folks have been beaten down underdogs. And you'll see so clearly why what Jesus is saying is so challenging to them. Well, God said that if we followed these rules, he was going to give us this city on a hill. Well, God said if we did what he asked us to do, we would have the riches of the world. Well, God said this year I would get that promotion. Well, God said this year my marriage would work if I'll just do these things. So think about it. Think about what Jesus is saying and how challenged this might have made them feel. So he continues on. I'm going to add a little bit of flair for meeting. So blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, or you'll be supremely happy when you strive for God's justice because you'll be satisfied. God's justice, that's interesting. Blessed are the merciful, or you'll be supremely happy when you forgive others who don't deserve it because you'll receive forgiveness from God as well. Blessed are the pure in heart, or you'll be supremely happy when you have right motives, when you live a life of integrity and honesty, because when you do that, it will give you eyes to see God everywhere. Blessed are the peacemakers, or you'll be supremely happy when you are a mediator and a reconciler, because you'll be called a child and an heir of God. Finally, blessed are you when people persecute you on Jesus' account, or, this gets me, you'll be supremely happy when people get mad at you or hurt you for seeking out God's justice, because your true treasure is knowing God and loving people recklessly, and that will challenge others to do the same. I got to tell you, as I was preparing this message, all of this stuff really challenged me. When I thought about God's justice, I'm like, I know what God's justice is, and those people need to shut up. They need to quit talking. Those people need to stop being angry at everybody. If I read through Facebook one more time and see this rant, those people, right? But here's the deal. You start looking at the spirit of what Jesus is talking about, and you start to understand what God's justice really is. He's really talking about this word, redemption. Making things right that aren't right. And you know how redemption happens? Forgiveness. See, God's justice ultimately comes from us receiving his forgiveness, taking on forgiveness for ourselves, and extending forgiveness to others. Jesus is sharing his game plan here with the world. And you know where this leads him? To sacrifice himself and ultimately to become the blessing for us in his resurrection. Once we understand that, we see that his invitation is to follow him to do the same. For some of us, this is really, really challenging because just like Frank Sinatra saying, I just want it my way. But our way leads to death. His way leads us through death and into life. Paul said it like this in Romans 12. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, man, when you can see God's mercy in your life, when you can see his grace in your life at work, you can't help but respond to it because it's amazing. And in view of God's mercy, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. Give everything you have to this. Live differently because he's loved you differently. Holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Worship is responding to all that God is with all that we are. Living sacrifice. And this is where it gets even better. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. The pattern of this world is dog eat dog. The pattern of this world is stand on the corner and shout at people because that's really going to get them to do what you want. The pattern of this world is fight people break things. There is a time when we need to speak out, when there's injustice. But have you gotten low enough to win people's favor for them to see what you're talking about first? Because that's what Jesus did. Renew your mind. Become aligned with Jesus. Then, and only then, will you be able to test and approve what God's will is, what God's justice is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. You know, Graham told us very eloquently last week that humility is seeing yourself in the context of God, but pride is seeing things in the context of you. Personally, I feel like my context got pulverized this year. So I'm ready for something new. I need a little bit of God's context because what I was doing wasn't working. And there's some things about my life and my context this year that came at me from nowhere. I didn't expect it. Had important people in my life die within months of each other. My job, you know, I know we smile up here and what we get to do is amazing. But the pastors of this church, we worked really hard. We had to figure things out to deliver, hopefully, hope and good news to you, even when we didn't always feel it. Yeah. But it was worth it. It was worth being a living sacrifice because God is that good. He was good back then, he's good now, and he's going to be good in the future. Right. We had to work through death in ourselves to reach out and grab his light and live. But I got angry about it. I got angry in the process. I didn't always like the people I work with every day. I didn't always like my kids. My grandpa used to tell me, you know, and he was real Italian, but he was like, you know, sometimes I love you. Sometimes I like you, and sometimes I don't. But you know what? Jesus had this joy that was set before him, and he endured the cross, despising its shame, because he knew there was life on the other side. And what some people would have said were obstacles in our community, we knew what Jesus would do. And what Jesus does is he takes those obstacles, he makes opportunities out of them. That's right. That's a resurrected life. That is a blessed life. So man, I've been angry. We all have in our own ways. There's people in your life that you would love to bury. There's people that you know distantly, you wish someone would take them out back to the woodshed. But that's not the way of Jesus. No, Jesus calls us to be a peacemaker. A peacemaker entails being a living sacrifice like him. And when I mean peacemaker, I'm not talking about just being peaceful. I'm not talking about being a pacifist, but actively stepping into the tension with people or stepping into the darkness in situations and bringing peace through reconciliation with love and mercy by any means necessary. When I felt angry, I had to choose to have hard conversations with people. I had to choose to listen to sides that I didn't want to hear. And I had to choose to be quiet, to listen, to bring the polar opposite worlds together to meet into one thing. That's what it means to be a peacemaker. Dying to your own way and living out God's justice. Jesus is literally heaven on earth. He is heaven and he is earth, married into one. He takes all of that on the cross where heaven and earth meet, and he puts the death of humanity to death. And then he flips the switch in his resurrection and turns heaven on. And we are the inheritors of that if we'll just listen and follow him and be in relationship. We say at this church that you don't have to believe to belong, and that is true. We also say that even if you don't believe the stuff we believe about Jesus, that if you do what he says, you'll have a better life. But I'm telling you today that if you take all that away and you really step into allowing Jesus to change you, not only will your life become better, but you'll receive joy. you'll receive that peace and that comfort that you're looking for. Your circumstances might not change immediately, but you really do receive heaven in turn. Sometimes the cost will be your pride, your anger, your resentment, your bitterness. People will not understand why you're not clapping back on socials. They may not get why you're reading, they might not get why you're reading and listening and trying to understand the other side of the conversation while you're trying to grow to be more compassionate. They may not get why you're hanging out with those people. But just remember, Jesus did the same. Jews demanded signs, Greeks seek wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified. That's what Paul said in 1 Corinthians. It's foolishness what I'm talking about. I get it. Doesn't make sense. It feels like a paradox. But then it does make sense. By the way, persecution doesn't come because we're being super annoying and so religious about what is right and wrong that we call people out and generalize and condemn people with megaphones. It comes because we love so quietly and radically that it confounds others. Jesus modeled this heart posture with another simple act the night that he was about to be betrayed. He was going to be betrayed and then crucified, and he knew this. So he came in to have a celebration. There was like a feast going on in Jerusalem. So it was like the great setup where Jesus would be seen and he would do what he would do. And so in the customs of that time, people didn't have cool shoes like I do today. And I don't have Yeezys like Pastor Eric and Jonah, but I manage with what I've got on, my tennies. And so they didn't wear that then. They had sandals. Okay, if you're a person that traveled with sandals, imagine the places that you would step or the things you would step in. Okay, you guys tracking with me so far? So just imagine you go to eat and you get a whiff of something a little interesting. The poop isn't in the pie, the poop is on your shoe. We'll just start with that. So the custom of the day was when guests would come to a house, a servant would wash their feet. Okay, our equivalent of washing hands. Okay, they'd wash feet. So all of a sudden, the disciples show up in this room with Jesus. They're about to have this awesome meal. But before they do, it's like Jesus shushes the servant away, and he has a bowl and a towel brought to him. Now just imagine the person that you respect the most, that has the wisdom, that you want to lift up and elevate, coming to you with a bowl of water and a towel, wanting to do what lowly servants should do. That's what Jesus does right before he dies. And you know what? He washes the feet of the man in that room who will go and sell him out, knowing that that's what's going to happen. Jesus said this, "Do you understand what I've done to you? You address me as teacher and master, and rightly so. That is what I am. So if I, the master and teacher, wash your feet, you must now wash each other's feet. I've laid down a pattern for you. What I've done, you do. I'm only pointing out the obvious. A servant is not ranked above his master. An employee doesn't give orders to the employer. If you understand what I'm telling you, act like it. And watch this. And live a blessed life." Now listen, I'm not telling you to go home and wash somebody's feet. It might be cool to do as a symbolic act, but that's not what Jesus is asking. Jesus is asking, will you get in the grime and the dirt of people's lives like I have? And will you be a force of cleansing? Will you be the peace that you hope for? Will you be the comfort to somebody that you hope for? Will you be God's justice in someone's life? And the way that you do it is you serve. You get low. Does it inspire you? Does it rub you the wrong way? Probably both. You know, for a lot of us, we really like that simple, just be good, just throw a little money at it, smile once in a while, mind your own business stuff, because that's easy. Jesus shows us that the more, though, requires our courage and openness and vulnerability, because that is what alignment actually takes in his kingdom. You really have to put yourself out there. A lot of us just needed a win this year. Did you need a win? Yeah. I needed a win. Maybe you needed to get that job back. Maybe you're really banking on this election to make it right for you. Maybe you hope that your house sells. Maybe you hope that your kids go to that school, or that your kids go to school at all. Maybe you hope that your team will play and win, finally, after a really long time of not winning, for the love of God. I don't want to be challenged, Jesus. I'm trying to hang on here, man. Some of this stuff is just not sexy. I don't know how much I can really do this. But you know what? It's the greatest part of this. Jesus isn't asking you to strive for it. Jesus is just asking you to be close to him and watch him do the rest. Because it's not about what you can achieve. It's about who you are with him. That's the real win. Really, all these Beatitudes are descriptions of what love looks like, and in turn, it shows us what an aligned life will actually yield. You know, the world might be dark around you like my clothes are, but inside, you can be blessed. Because this is what Jesus offers us. Don't let the world get you down. Don't let people tell you you can't. Because in Jesus, you can do all things. You don't need to inherit the earth. You don't need to inherit worldly pleasure. Because if you have him, you got everything. None of these blessings can be earned. Can't strive for it. These blessings all point to what you become as you become partnered or aligned with Jesus, and ultimately that leads to being supremely happy. And I think what supremely happy actually is this word that Pastor Eric shared with us a couple weeks ago. Man, I'm tying this up so good. Feeling it. Bringing this full circle. I love that. Pastor Eric told us about this word called joy. And joy happens when we put Jesus first, then others, and then ourselves. That's what it means to be supremely happy. To be blessed inside brings the joy. So if it all comes back to knowing Jesus, I think I got a couple ways to sort of reframe some of this stuff. Because like I said, at first it feels really challenging. But when I read the Bible and Jesus says something that's hits me in the gut, I remember this other thing that Jesus said. He said that he came to bring life and bring it to the full. What feels tough will actually bring you life, like a chiropractor. He might crack your back a little bit, pull your fingers, but man, you're gonna feel good after. And that's what Jesus does. He brings life. So let's reframe this whole alignment thing. So we'll start off with this. Alignment is like yoga. It's like yoga. So get out your mat, AKA the Bible, and start reading. Stretch in the morning by yourself. Maybe stretch with others, but let the Bible and prayer be the tools that they are to stretch your hearts and get to know God, right? And guess what? Another great thing to do is if you're like, I have no idea what this thing is saying, get in the SOAP group. It's awesome. Isn't it, Grace? It is great. We love it. SOAP, for those of you that might not know, stands for Scripture, Observation, Application, Prayer. You'll read some Scripture. You'll talk about what you see. You'll apply it to your life. And then you'll pray about it. And you'll feel better. You'll feel better. Man, get your stretch on. You know, I don't know this because I really haven't been to a yoga studio, but what I hear is that when you go in doing your thing, you know, but you're doing it beside people. You're not really supposed to compare yourself with other people, but you're trying to push yourself. So you no. Well, that's what happens when you read the Bible with people. You I sort of get this. What do you think about that? It's this really cool exchange. All right. Alignment is like limbo. Okay? So how low can you go? Serve others and have fun with it. Because it's life-giving. It will change you. And guess what? I don't know if you've been in a limbo line, but you definitely want to invite people to go with you because you'll look like an idiot if you don't. And everybody has a great time when they do it. Serving is the same way. Serving in community with other people is wonderful. It's so much fun. Next, alignment is like the Seminoles chant. There is something that happens when we come together on a Sunday. Listen, I know some of you came here to receive, to consume. That's totally okay. But just imagine if all of us came on Sunday prepared like these people are. Do you know your chants? Do you know the songs we're going to sing? Get on Spotify. We update it every week so that you can be prepared to come here. It's not about homework. But there's something that happens when we're all going like this at the same time. And it's, oh, am I right? It's fun. It stirs my spirit. It encourages me. And it gets my mind aligned on who God is. Sundays are great. Notice when you go to a football game, what feeds you is that conversation you have with somebody. What feeds you is when you see someone cross that line of the pigskin because that Hail Mary pass was amazing. Guess what? Jesus threw the biggest Hail Mary pass, and he's won forever. Yes. Secret. Guys, when I'm like, come on, everybody up here, because that's a lot of what I do. I sing up here, for those of you that might not know that. I lead a lot of songs. I'm not trying to force you to do something you're uncomfortable with. I'm trying to invite you into something that's so life-giving. I don't sing these songs because we have to. I sing these songs because I believe it. Come ready to make Sunday rowdy. Let's make it rowdy. We party here. I don't know about those other churches. I love them. But Jesus set me free. That's not something I'm going to... Praise the Lord. I'm not, it's like that. It's like I'm in my pockets, but I'm not, I'm like this because God set me free and he deserves everything from me. My body, my voice. I may not have a voice forever, but man, I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. I'll waste it all because he wasted it all on me. He gave up everything. And when you know that, when that's a reality to you. Now listen, I know some of us don't have a pretty voice. I get that. But you know what? There's 7 words in Hebrew for praise. And not all of them are about your voice. Some of them are about your hands. Some of them are about the shout. Some are about, when you do that chant. I don't know, if you need to do the in the corner all by myself, you can do that one too. But move. It's fun. It'll align your heart. Guess what? Alignment always leads to community. That's what Jesus gave us with the Beatitudes. He's like, hey, do this in the community. You guys do this together. You'll all be filled with peace. You'll all be comforted when you do these things. Jesus shows us that when we align with him, and it brings harmony everywhere in the end. So maybe Bill and Ted had something right. Maybe if we all pick up our instruments and play the song together, and I'll add with Jesus, we'll save the universe. Yeah. We need each other. A lot of us try to get aligned on our own with Jesus, and that's great. You need to have a personal relationship with him. But a personal relationship with Jesus always leads you to have a personal relationship with somebody else. That's how you know that what you're doing is headed in the right direction. And Jesus, he brought a whole people group together. It wasn't just then, it's happening throughout history. And we're a part of it. We get to be a part of it. So I'm going to pray for us, and maybe, some next steps for you is like, maybe you need to have a hard conversation with someone and be the reconciler, be the mediator, be the peacemaker. Maybe you're mourning and you need to receive comfort. Find someone to comfort you. Find someone to speak to your heart. Maybe it's the Lord. Maybe you feel this sense of God's justice, but you need to approach it from a different angle. He's not asking you to get mad and shout at everybody. Maybe you need to put a pause on the rants on the socials. Might be good for you. Maybe you need to get off socials. I don't know. Maybe you need to spend time in the Bible, whether that's for the first time. And if you are reading it for the first time, start in this book called Mark. It's really short and easy to read. I promise. Maybe you need to read the Bible with others. Go to a soap group. And you can find out about that over there. It's wonderful. Jesus, just thank you so much that the life that you offer us is not a I have to life. It's an I get to life. That this isn't an I will so you will or vice versa. This is us being us with you in a relationship. We can be excellent because you are forever excellent. And so, Lord, we just lean into that today. Thank you for showing up in this space with us, for showing us how to do it your way, because your way is better. And just like the songs we sang earlier today, I just believe the chains are falling, fear is bowing, and it's happening here and now. So Lord, help us to release what holds us back from being everything that you called us to be, full of potential, creativity, fun, joy, supremely happy, blessed. And thank you for helping us to have this blessing inside us even when the world is dark, because you are the brightest light. We love you so much. In your name, Jesus, amen.